good evening, and you're very welcome to episode 25 of season 5 of the League of Ireland Women's podcast here on finalwhistle.ie with myself, Breffney Early, and as always, joined by the ultra knowledgeable Aaron Clark on all things Women's League of Ireland. Aaron, this week it's Cup week, plenty of games, 4 quarterfinals. We're gonna see a new face on the league, on the Cup. Well, not necessarily a new face. Athlone won it 2 years ago, but Shells, the holders, out, beaten by Shamrock Rovers in Talca Park on Friday night. We're going to be talking about that first. We'll also be chatting about Newbridge Town's outing against Bohemians, beaten fairly comprehensively in the end, but a really good showing from the Kildare side, particularly when they equalised early on to set that game up. Bohs probably just experienced shone out in the end in that particular fixture. A big clash between Peamount and Athlone, 2 recent winners of the Cup. They met in Greenogue on Saturday evening, while Dalymount and Treaty were aiming for their first cracks at a semi-final berth. It's been a while. I think Treaty got there in their inaugural season, but they haven't been back since. But it's a big milestone for them as they continue a really, really impressive season. They will face into the final 4 in a couple of weeks' time. We'll talk about the cup draw as well, which happened yesterday, and of course the small matter of that back game in the league between Peamount and Bohs. That game took place last night as well in Dalymount. Plenty of action for us to chat about over the next hour or so. Aaron, how was your week? What have you been up to?
Yeah, been not bad. 3 games of football since we last spoke. Been busy, been hectic. Got out of the capital again, taking advantage of getting on them Irish rails for a change.
It's funny how you people from the Pale talk about getting out of the capital. You got to Newbridge. That's not really that far out of the city.
Come on, it's out of Dublin. Been to Athlone twice. More than likely going to Athlone again this weekend. Getting out more than I have in the last couple of years.
It's nice to see.
Give me credit. You got to give me a bit of credit.
The world does exist outside the M50, Aaron. It does. Trust us, it does. Let's start maybe on Friday night. We'll do it in chronological order for the most part. Big game on Friday night in Talca Park. We've seen a lot of turmoil in Tala in the last few weeks with the departure of Collie O'Neill, the interim appointment of Steph Zambra, and people chatting about maybe what that means for the club going forward. Will she get the job full time? We're looking at somebody else coming in at the end of the season. We don't quite know how that's going to pan out, but it was a big night for them because, let's be honest, they're out of the title race for this year. They can't win silverware in that stage. I think they're out of the Avenir Cup as well. So the only chance to kind of redeem the season and put a bit of silverware or even a cup final, which would be nice, is the FAI Cup. They needed a win more than Shells did on Friday night, but those two teams don't like each other that much. Plenty of players kind of who've gone across the line between the two sides over the last few seasons, and it's, I suppose, also a bit of personal bad blood, maybe from, not bad blood, but rivalry from some of the players coming from different clubs as well. So plenty of kind of bite to it. Shamrock Rovers hadn't read the script though, as far as Shells are concerned. Great results for Shamrock Rovers. 2-1 winners on the night. They've got to be happy with that.
They should never be winning that game. Never be winning that game. They should be 3 or 4-0 down at half time. And that's the big difference, is the fact that they weren't. And when they started that second half and got the 2 early goals, and we'll talk about the game in detail in a minute, but like when they got them 2 early second half goals, you could see the Shamrock Rovers character, the togetherness, the youthful players, how much of an impact that they actually had on that game for Stephanie Zambra. And like, even, it's not even the relief. The curse of Shelbourne and Talca Park against Shamrock Rovers continues. It's played 5, lost 3, drawn 2 for Shells against Rovers in Talca since they've come back. Funny enough, the record the opposite way around is pretty much something similar, in the sense of Rovers are poor in Tala against Shells. Shells are great in Tala, but in Talca, it's just one of them. In terms of the game itself, like, great crowds, over 700 for a Shells women's game. They haven't had massive crowds in the last year or so. Got off to a great start. Unbelievable ball from Avian Clancy to Pearl Slattery after she stayed up for the corner, and then Pearl's lovely little turn and strike on the first attempt. But like, then Shells hit the crossbar. But the chance of the half probably has to be Mackenzie Anthony, when Maria Reynolds is hobbling and Scarlett Heron slips just on half time, and she scores that 2-0. I don't see Shamrock Rovers coming back, but when she puts that wide, you're sort of thinking, ooh. I had a conversation at half time with our legendary photographer, Mick O'Shea, and he turned around to me and said to me, next goal's the winner, he said. And little did we realise that Shamrock Rovers would score 2 goals and literally within a minute. A nice header from Scarlett Heron for the first one, and then straight from the kickoff, the ball's played back to Kiva Keenan, and she gives the ball to Emily Corbett. Corbett then plays the ball off to Anna Butler, but Anna Butler's little flick to sort of send Kiva Keenan the wrong way before going through and goal was unbelievable. I said to you before we started the podcast that I was going to mention a little nugget about that game that I found very interesting. Scarlett Heron scored the first goal on Friday. She was in Tolka Park again today as part of the media for Off the Ball, interviewing the Shells management team for the men's game coming up on Thursday. I just thought that was a nice, it's an interesting full circle moment after scoring such a vital goal on Friday.
Yeah, she's really making an impact in Off the Ball Towers. So interesting to see how that progresses for her as a career option off the pitch. But in terms of on the pitch, it was all Shamrock Rovers. After the final whistle, they held on pretty well because most of the action was down their end. For once they went 2-1 up, it was still kind of all Shells, but they just couldn't find that breakthrough. And there was just some unbelievable moments in terms of chances. Mackenzie Anthony, you mentioned it with a miss in the first half. There was another chance she could have scored in the second as well that could have leveled it up, but it just wasn't to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you're looking at Megan Smith-Lynch hits the crossbar as well. Like, I was chatting to somebody about the Mackenzie Anthony touch, the shot she had that was the unbelievable save from Lawless, and she controls it loudly on her chest. But just the time it took for the ball to fall down to her feet gave Summer Lawless that split second. And we've been a bit critical of Summer Lawless, well, I have in particular, in the sense of hasn't had some performances haven't been great in the sense of some of the goals they've conceded. But on Friday night, she was so astute, so resilient in goal for them. Like, I felt the Rovers kids were stood up and were counted for on Friday, and I think that was massive for me. And like, Steph will tell you herself, she hasn't necessarily got the players in terms of the squad. She had a lot of young players on the pitch. She lacked a lot of experience. She was having to bring more youngsters off the bench, but they stood up and were very counted. And like, it was interesting. Like, when you look at the two squads, Shells, what I found mad about Shells on Friday was the fact that Owen Warren made 3 individual subs and didn't use his bench to his full strength going for it. I would have thought we may have seen Devro, we may have seen Gabby Del Pico, or maybe one of the other 2 youngsters on the bench and just go for it, especially when he makes that last sub. But like, for Shells, their season is starting to really crumble a little bit, considering they haven't recovered since they lost the Bohs in the All-Ireland Cup. You can nearly say since they lost the Bohs in the league, they'd one result and then they lost them again in the All-Ireland Cup. And the 2 performances after the All-Ireland Cup against Cork and Waterford weren't where they needed to be for Shells. And then, like, we could be having a different conversation if they put them chances away in the first half. But second half, like, as much as they huffed and puffed, like, I thought Shamrock Rovers defensively showed they were resilient and showed a lot of character. Like, some of the teams might have broken in that situation, and you got to give Rovers credit for not breaking.
Yeah, I think that's the big one for me, is that I think we're beginning to see Steph's character coming through, because Steph, people have their own opinions about her ability, and I think she has shown at patches that she's as good as anyone who's played for Ireland in periods, and then maybe she's had periods where she hasn't been quite on the boil at international level, but she's always had that backbone of kind of, I'm never going to quit, like, and we're beginning to see that coming through in the Shamrock Rovers performances, because I don't know if that team 3 or 4 months ago would have held on to that 2-1 lead for 40 minutes. I'm not sure if they had that character, or they had that fight. I think Collie definitely was a good coach, but I don't know whether the players, he had the full support of the players in that respect, in terms of that they would go to the wall for them. I think we're beginning to see that they will for Steph. And I don't know whether that means that she'll get the gig or not, but it's I think if Rovers were to go on and win the cup, it's very hard for the club not to give her the role.
It'd be interesting to see if they wait that long that'll be the interesting thing. If they wait that long, or if they wait potentially even up until the cup semi-final, she gets them to the cup final even before they play the cup final. Like the thing for me, and this is where I saw a bit of a different side of Steph that I didn't know where. And I'm not being disrespectful when I say this, whether she was capable of doing this. She dropped Anya back to right full and nearly right wing back, nearly took Anya a lot out of the game going forward. But she knew that was what the team needed when Maria Reynolds come off, and she put Fiona Owens into centre back. She put Anya into right wing back, sort of took Anya out of that attacking option, and Anya done a job for her. But it was more, she knew that was the right thing to do. And I don't necessarily know whether we would have seen that as much previously from Rovers, in the sense of whether they might have just put someone else in there. And I think that was a brave call.
But if you're looking for someone to fill in a right wing back, someone with 100+ caps in that position is not the worst option to have at your disposal, just to drop her back in there. And they know each other so well. They know each other so well because, as we all know, they've pretty much played on, apart from a few years when Steph was away, they've pretty much played on the same team since they were like kids, like 13, 14 or younger. And then back when Steph came back to Peamount, they were in the same squad for 2 or 3 years. They both moved to Shamrock Rovers together. So they've probably played 10 or 12 senior years together. They've probably played 7 or 8 underage years together. These girls know each other and they're friends. Do you know what I mean? They're good buddies as well. So I guarantee that wasn't done without consultation with Anya as well. Do you know what I mean? It was a discussion around that. And I think that's what Steph brings to the table, is that there's a lot of, she knows these girls very well, which is a poison chalice at times, but I think she's capable of having that conversation with them. There's also a little ruthless streak in Steph. Like, she's quite capable of saying no. I don't mean that in a negative way, but she's quite capable of saying no, or being very definite about what she wants and getting that message across. So that's a positive, I think, going forward. I think they're a game away from her being right bang in that conversation. And I think we'll talk about the cup draw later on, but I think
I would go as far as saying, does Friday not bring her right into that conversation? Because
she's in the conversation, but I think if they get to the cup final, I think she's almost nailed on.
I also think it's interesting the fact that she brought in her coaching, and I asked her about this, and she said when she brought Paul O'Reilly, and she said she knew she needed someone with a bit of experience. She said the last couple of weeks have just been absolutely manic, and was like, I didn't want to just bring in anybody. And and it was the sort of thing to say, okay, I'll get the right coach, and I'm ready to get the right additional person into the background. And like, the thing about it is they probably should have beaten Wexford. There wasn't very much in the game against Galway, and like I even said, like, to you even here, like, that sort of running games is very, very difficult. And like, if they go and get beaten against Shells and get convincingly beaten against Shells, it's a difficult one to sort of turn that corner against and sort of turn that bit of momentum in your favour. And like, Mia Dodd picked up a niggle. Amy Neal wasn't part of the squad Friday, so like, they were really light on bodies as well. And I just think you can definitely see the way the players did play for Stephanie on Friday. And I spoke to one or two of them after the game, and I know the players I'd get on with. I asked the question, about what she liked to work with, and like the response from the two players I asked were the exact same word. They just turned around and said she's a joy to play for. And
they're not come out and say they hate her. Like, let's be honest.
No, but not even that. But you'd expect people to give slightly different answers in the sense of how they answer the question. But the response was nearly straight away, boom, from the boat, and the boat were together. And that was the interesting thing, to use the same word.
Yeah,
was probably what was interesting for me, because you can use loads of different words to describe her. Do I think it's still a gamble to give her the job? Absolutely. But is she someone who's going to give it 100% if she is successful? For sure. Yeah. The other side of it is I also think we've seen a battle on Friday night where the inexperience of Shelbourne management ticket as well sort of played its part as well. The fact of this is what we're in second season as a head coach, having previously at senior level. I think there's been a couple of times this season where decision making, you'd ask a couple of questions on some of the decisions that Shells have made this season.
I raised that with you, the defeat in Bohemians in the recent league game, where I just felt when the two sending offs in a minute happened, the substitutions immediately after that made no sense to me. And maybe they were already set, but I think
so one of them. Noel was coming off anyway in that game, and he said that to me. He said Noel was coming off. It was going to be for Megan, and then as soon as the 2 red cards happened, he obviously needed to get. He then decided to go with Maeve Ulmer and get a defender. The defender was obviously needed, but he decided to go with Maeve Ulmer instead of Megan. But like even the question I'd say is like even in sort of Friday, like how do you not just go for it? And like if you lose the game 3-1, you lose the game 3-1. If you to try and get back into it, and like even when Shells were doing a lot of things on Friday, like Roberts, like apart from when Mackenzie Anthony got through, Megan Smith is a shot, Lynch's shot is a shot from outside the box. Like a lot of the things weren't too difficult, or weren't, how would you say, set plays or things like that where Roberts were lucky to defend them. You know what I mean? They were getting heads on balls, they were clearing balls away, and like it boils down to them bad results and coming into what they have this weekend. Now, I said you off air, and I will say it here, and I don't know if whether it's true or not, but it was said to me on Friday, even talk apart from someone in Shells, they were concerned that Alex Kavanagh may be suspended for Saturday's game against Athlone because she picked up a second yellow card in the cup. I'd actually asked at half time if that was the case, if she would miss the semi-final if they'd got there. But some in Shells seem to think she may miss the Athlone game, and if that's the case, it's massive. But like, if you're missing Athlone, who does Owen Warren put in there? Are some of the senior players, the more experienced players, is it getting more evident that they're coming towards the end of their career? Yes, I think this season we've seen it probably more than we have in previous seasons, that some of the more experienced players are coming to the end of their career. And like you look at the bench you would have had last year, you're now seeing some of them other players off flourishing in the likes of Bohs in different teams, and what he'd probably give to have some more of them players. And even the question you've got to ask is, should they have gone to the transfer window? Could they still go to the transfer window for an out contract professional and bring 1 or 2 bodies in? They probably need it.
Yeah, but again, it boils down to money. Do they have the money to do that? I know Shells as an entity probably do, but whether the women's section of the club or has the resources, there's been a change there in terms of the who's in charge. Tomas Quinn has come in from WGA, has come in as the new CEO. So has that had an impact? Will it have an impact in terms of the support for within the women's side of the club? I know Neil Doyle has been very vocal about the women's side. I don't think it'll have an impact, but you never quite know the nuances of how these things change.
I haven't seen Mossy Quinn. I'm a massive Mossy Quinn fan. You know, I'm a massive WGA fan. I haven't seen Mossy Quinn in a women's game. I haven't, and that's the sort of thing to me. It's get these faces should be around, showing their faces at these sort of games. It's all well and good when the lads are doing well and the premium seats are full of, you know, ex-Dublin players, all these big high-profile people. I'm sending them to Talca Park for the women's games, you know, and that to me is a big thing of that I don't like in terms of Shells. Is, you know, there's so many people who are doing so much good work to sort of rise the profile and rise the whole things within off the field of Shelbourne women. We need to see more from the likes of the board, the CEOs, these sort of people, like get out and show their faces. It's one thing that you'd expect from someone in a position like that.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you. I haven't been at games, so I can't comment. But yeah, if they need to be visible, they need to be out, they need to be showing that it's a full 360 view of the game, including the underage, including the women. It don't have to be every underage game, but they have to make kind of token appearances. And I think the players see that as well. Supporters see it, the parents see it when you get to the underage stuff. And it needs to be as someone once told me, perception is reality. If people perceive that you're not interested, even if you are, you might as well not be, because they will assume that you're not interested, and that boils down to attention, resources, all of the things that these teams within these clubs need to survive and to thrive. Let's move on from the Shells game. We've given it plenty of airtime tonight. Let's talk about Newbridge, because Newbridge came in to this as very much the underdog. They'd come through a tie against non-league opposition in the first round against Whitehall, and they're there on merit, but we've seen over the last few years that the non-league sides struggle. They struggle to maintain the quality, the pace of the game, particularly in the closing stages. We saw a little bit of that as well on Saturday. But as far as non-league performances go in the cup, they got a goal, which might sound a bit facetious, but in fact, that's very, very rare for non-league sides against league opposition. They were in the game right up until the last half hour or so. Your thoughts on their performance? You were at the game.
First of all, there was a bigger crowd at Newbridge than there was at several of the other FAI Cup games this weekend. Almost 700 fans through the gate. Atmosphere was great. First half performance, and I know Alban Heise sort of let rip at the players nearly at half time to tell them things weren't the way he would have wanted. Early penalty, it's a clear penalty. Hannah O'Brien's contact in the box. It's a penalty all day. And when Alana McAvoy slots that home and the 8th minute, I started thinking it's going to be a really, really, really long day for Newbridge Town. I thought Newbridge's character in the first half, in the sense of how they defended, was very good. I thought Bohs' decision making was extremely poor. Bohs had nearly probably 80, 85, 90% of possession in that first half, and the way Newbridge sort of stayed compact, stayed composed with the 5 at the back, I was actually quite impressed with the fact that you could clearly see the visible frustration on the Bohs players from the way Newbridge were defending. I thought Brooke Dunn and Caitlin Kennedy in the middle of the peel for Newbridge were very good. The funny thing is I walked away from this game sort of thinking the players most impressed with was the Newbridge Town goalkeeper, and she conceded 7 goals. I thought she was unbelievable in goal. I thought Kay Foley was superb in goal. Go in 1-0 down at half time. Like, if you're Newbridge Town, you're absolutely buzzing. You're delighted. You're thinking, great, still in this game. Then when they equalise, definitely, I've heard some massive roars when teams have equalised in big League of Ireland games, like when Bohs scored the equaliser against Shells in the All-Ireland Cup semi-final. But Jesus, the crowd noise in Newbridge Town when they scored. I won't name names, but an official of the Newbridge, who was involved in Newbridge Town's first team, was come over to ask me a question just as the second half started. And when Newbridge scored, he nearly jumped in celebration, not realising there were several Bohs players around. It was only after the game that there was a couple of the Bohs players who weren't involved there. Come here, 7-1. Everybody's going to turn around and say, it was a hiding. Newbridge made changes due to injuries, due to other reasons, and when players started to tire, once their first 11 started to tire, Bohs were always going to take over. Like, he brought on Sarah McKevy, he brought on Lisa Murphy. The whole thing about that game was he didn't want to bring McKevitt, didn't want to bring Murphy, didn't want to bring Fiona Donnelly. He was forced to bring Murphy and McKevitt on in the second half, and I think that's a credit to what Newbridge actually done in terms of the performance in the first half. And like, when the goals started to come in, you got to say Bohs, they took their chances later in the second half. They did 4 goals in the last 13 minutes, and it was a comfortable enough win in the end. But I was very impressed with a lot of things that Newbridge done. Interesting, Mark Scanlon and FAI President Paul Cook were there. I said this to you off air, and I'll say it on air as well. I still think while Newbridge are doing great work for the fact that they're signed their first year in the Eastern Women's Premier League this year to get to an FAI Cup quarter final, they got to be proud. But I still think if women's football is to grow in Newbridge Town, I think some personalities need to change their opinion on women's football, because I was introduced to someone high profile within the club, and as soon as women's football was mentioned, it was sort of it wasn't really an attention thing to me, and it left something in my mouth to sort of think, I'm after coming down here at a great day out, and then I'm left with that, and that's my lasting memory, unfortunately. But to Newbridge Town, I think they were brilliant, put in a great performance. There is one other issue on the pitch that I didn't like, and that was when Brooke Dunn had to go off. It was a clear concussion. You could hear the bang, and the referee said, no, it's not a concussion sub, because there was no doctor to sign off on it. Anybody watching it could see she was concussed.
Yeah. So it's a fair safety thing. To go back to the issue about the official not having any interest in the women's game, and like, first of all, that's probably not reflective of the club in general. It's probably just again, I wasn't there, but in my experience, I've met those type of individuals in almost every club in the country. Yeah. Almost every code.
I can name half a dozen in the women's Premier Division.
Yeah, there's no need to name names. People know who they are, and there's one in every club, at least one in every club. And I think this is the poison chalice of getting in bed with the men's League of Ireland teams, is that, yeah, they bring facilities. Yes, they bring coaching expertise. Yes, they bring resources. They bring that know-how of how to run a team at that level. They absolutely bring all of that. But unfortunately, and it's not going to change anytime soon. It's a generational thing. It's going to take people to literally die out before it changes. Some people involved in the men's game, and this is why we've had the women's game at such a lower level for so long. Some people involved in the men's game, and I could be talking soccer, rugby, Gaelic, hurling, or camogie, whatever you want to talk about, have no interest and will never have an interest in the women's game. We run a website here, finalwhistle.ie. We keep all the results and fixtures of every single adult game across the country and at all levels, senior League of Ireland right down to junior club championships. And the challenge we have, finding men's results, is never a problem. We might struggle to get one result out of 100 on a Saturday evening when we're gathering results from left, right, and center. But when we're gathering results for women's, there are games on our website that took place on Friday night last that we still cannot. And we've contacted and had communications with clubs and social media accounts and the county boards and leagues. We still can't get the results of those games. It might get, oh yeah, the home team won or the away team won or it was a draw, but actually just getting something as simple as, here's the result of the game, posted to social media or on a working website for that organization or a club, virtually non-existent when you get to certain levels. And I'm not talking low levels. I'm talking senior club championships.
But that's where these sort of clubs should turn around and say, you're doing what? You're actually publicising the results. Let me get this for you. Let me push this. How can I get my club?
The players, ironically, one of the players in Newbridge last week, Abby Stafford, was hugely helpful to us to get the results from the club championships in her county last week. She was sending us results left, right, and centre in the build-up to the game on Saturday. Very helpful. But we find the players are the ones that send us in the information. But my point being is that women in sport need to accept that they have to step up as well. You can't just go, oh yeah, we're in with the men, they take care of everything now, because invariably you'll hit a roadblock somewhere. The women involved in women's sports need to have somebody for all of these roles. So, like, would there be a doctor at an FAI men's cup game? Absolutely. So why is there not one for the women's game? And why are the women not insisting on it? And I don't mean forcing the men to provide it. I mean actually go and get the resources yourselves to make sure it's a reality. The people running these teams need to step up within those clubs as well and make sure it's equality has to work both ways, if that makes it. You can't just expect the existing structures to support the new entities in that structure. You've got to provide back to that structure too from within that club. It's a
everybody needs to work together. 100%. Interesting thing for you. The most viewed interviews on our social media accounts over the weekend.
I would say it's Newbridge Town.
The two most, and I had Summer Lawless. I had players scored hat-tricks. And the Newbridge Town, and they were so appreciative of. The players were so appreciative of the actual fact that, you made the effort.
This is what I'm trying to say, is that the junior levels of sport in this country are so poorly catered for in terms of profile. If Dublin senior inter-county ladies footballer sneezes, it's on the papers the following day.
Yeah.
If an international rugby player sneezes, it's on the paper the following day. But the reality is, as many people care about a junior camogie team or a Division 2 soccer team in Limerick as care about some of those bigger teams. And the reality is, our whole concept, Final Whistle, exists because of that tier of middle sport in Ireland that doesn't get cared for. It's why this podcast exists, because nobody else does anything like this on a regular basis. We're here 5 years. You're here, what, 3.5?
3.5 years.
The podcast, and it came out of a conversation. I was laughing about you when we were down in Athlone a couple of weeks ago, because we very rarely see each other in person. It's mostly done over the internet. The podcast was born in the car park in Athlone town. I bumped into Steph Roach, as she was then. We had both snuck into a game. I think our boyfriend at the time, now husband, Dean Zambra, was playing with Athlone, or with Longford against Athlone. And the game was over. I was going to the car park. I saw this face said hello to me out of the darkness, and it was Steph. I hadn't seen her in a while, and we got chatting. And I was like, I meant to talk to you about a podcast. And she's like, so badly needed. And she jumped in to both feet straight into it. We got it up and running, and it's become this. But it doesn't exist outside of it because nobody else. There's no money in it, first of all. So the big corporations don't care. Newbridge Bohs, who really cares outside of the couple of hundred people that are at the game? You said there was 700, but that group of people exists for all of these games. So even a junior B ladies football match in Waterford, there's 15 players on each side, squads of 25 or 30, coaching staff. There's 20 or 30 families involved in that on either side. So there's 500 to 1,000 people who actually care about the result of that game, but you can't find it anywhere. Teams need to promote themselves better. Teams need to step up and really think about what they need to do. It's hard to justify getting money from a sponsor if the sponsor gets absolutely nothing back. Not even a tweet, not even a full-time score on your social media. Like, it's almost embarrassing that you're taking money from a company to be on the front of your jersey if you haven't put a picture up on the 2 or 3 times in the championship or league or whatever it might be, where I'm just in GA mode at the moment. But you need to be able to give something back. It's a two-way street. You can't just expect the handouts or the support on the big day if you haven't fed people in the whole way to the final or the whole way through the league or whatever it might be to a league winning game. Then there's interest. That's why there was a crowd in Newbridge the other day. It's because they've built up. They qualified for the cup, first of all. They promoted the hell out of that. They qualified through the first round. They had a big crowd, promoted the hell out of that. And now here they are. And I think it's great to see teams coming through. I think it's great to see, even if they're getting beaten, doesn't matter. It's about the opportunity to be there. You could set up a team in your backyard tomorrow. You get the players in. You enter the FAI Amateur Cup, and you could be playing in the FAI Senior Cup next year. That's how open this is for teams.
Speaking of Amateur Cup and Senior Cup, I think we need to sort of mention the news like about last week as well. While we're talking about the Amateur Cups, and the fact that the new alignment systems with the Amateur Cup and stuff like that, I've got a little bit of a concern over this now, Breffney, and it's not the fact of what they're doing. Okay,
if they're going there and you're getting all around,
it's not even that. It's more of an understanding, and I'm sure we can find this out. Because if they're saying they're going to have the new Amateur Cup running on a summer season,
yep,
how is that going to work in terms of teams qualifying for the Senior Cup?
Great question.
Are they going to have to play the Amateur Cup off very early? Because if the Senior Cup, say, starts in July, we'll have to have the semi-finals of the Amateur Cup unless they turn around and say the 2025 finalists or semi-finalists qualify for the 2026. So what happens then, say, with the 2025 entrants? How are they going to be distinguished?
Yeah, I think it's going to end up probably being closer to the second option you've talked about. That's how it used to be in the men's amateur, the men's FAI and the junior and intermediate qualifiers would be from technically the previous season. The calendar year kind of pushed that back to the previous half season. But I think it's a really positive step. I think the derogation for leagues to apply to be exempt from the calendar year was a mistake. I get all the negatives. I understand all the arguments that junior and intermediate clubs are making, particularly in rural Ireland. I'm from rural Ireland. There is there's not even, it's defunct. There is no adult men's or women's team within a 10-mile drive of me. How many within a 10-mile drive of you, Aaron? Teams. I'm not talking about clubs. I'm talking about teams.
In before I answer that question, you've got how many players from Leitrim playing League of Ireland?
There's 4 or 5 playing in the League of Ireland. There's 2 in the men's league. You've got Niall Moran at Bohs, and there's a guy, Evan O'Connor, is at, I think he's a treaty this year, or is he at Athlone?
And then you're talking women. You're talking women's.
Women's, you've got Derval Byrne playing last night for Peamount. You've got
Maren Devaney
playing with Sligo Rovers. There's a few others. Lauren Devaney gets a couple of games with Sligo Rovers. There might be a few other girls I'm not that familiar with.
But like to answer your question, I can't answer your question if it's 10-mile radius. Because I'm thinking, like, straight away to me, I'm thinking within a mile, I've probably got Swords Celtic, Swords Manor. Within a mile the other way, Whitehall are only down the road.
Yeah, but if you were living on O'Connell Bridge, probably a bad example, but if you were living, say, 3 or 4 miles outside of the city in Dublin, somewhere like Terranure or Glasnevin or
23rd.
Clontarf. I'm talking about teams. You could have that within a single club.
Yeah, but think about it. You said to me 10 miles, right?
Yeah.
I'm less than 10 miles from Kevin's. I'm less than 10 miles from Belvo.
Ballymun.
Ballymun, Raheny.
And then you can go north up to Balbriggan. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Balbriggan be too far.
there isn't a single...
Lusk, Rush, you know what I mean?
To bring it back to my point is that here there's not a single team within 10 miles of me, adult team. Boyle Celtic is the closest. They play in the Roscommon League, and then after that,
I can mention probably 20. Like that's the sort of thing that we understand what they're competing in rural football. The other side of the club.
My point is, Aaron, and I've had this argument locally as well with the local football club, which has existed, but they just haven't managed to fulfill fixtures, because when the Gaelic starts in February, March, April, the players drop away. And my point has always been a town like Carrick-on-Shannon, 3 or 4 miles down the road, they have a thriving underage section. A lot of players leave when they hit 18. They go to university, they go abroad, they don't stay playing locally here, unfortunately. But they've relied on that Gaelic population. The reality is, if the club had the foresight to go, do you know what? If you're playing Gaelic, go, best of luck to you. We'll happily take the best of what's left. Who wants to play soccer and soccer only? They would have a thriving community, because what happens is the stronger lads, let's be honest, get dropped in at the start of the season. And then in February, March, when the other guys who are like maybe 13, 14, 15, 16 on the squad aren't getting enough game time for their liking, they've dropped out over the winter. And now you can't feel the team in April at the business end of the season when games are coming thick and fast. And if you had said, do you know what, the 5 or 6 lads who are playing Gaelic away with you, we'll stick with the 20 lads we've got, that would be a solid squad. You'd have a solid team. Yes, initially maybe not as strong as the team you could have had on a given Sunday or Saturday morning, but in reality, over time, and I'm talking over 3 to 5 years, that team becomes so much stronger because everybody's there every single time. And I think
that's just how your club has to adapt.
But that's every club. That's every club.
That's what I mean. How do a club adapt and turn around and say, okay, I'm not going to have these players. Like in a women's soccer club, yes, there'll be a massive impact, but we can see some of the women's soccer leagues. Like look at the Sligo League. You know, we're seeing more and more a league that was formed in recent years. The Eastern Women's Premier Division is just sort of, since the MGL stuff is doing well, but they can do well. It's the case of is, if you're committed to it in terms of growing your club, yes, you're going to have obstacles in the short term, but if you have the right infrastructures in place, medium to long term, you're going to develop them players. When them players know, okay, I'm going to stick with soccer. I'm not going to go play against football.
The whole point. That's my whole point. Yeah, and I think it's short-term pain, absolutely. And I get it. I get it from the rural point of view. You're competing against GAA, rugby in certain places, mostly GAA, though. You're not going to win that in the short term. So don't even try. Admit defeat. And I guarantee you'll grow.
I was in the same boat for a long period growing up. I played rugby growing up and I played Gaelic football. And I wasn't great at either. But I always got the lure of going playing Gaelic football, going playing hurling, to where all of a sudden, even though they were different types of years, when the rugby sort of at certain age brackets, when the Gaelic football was on, it was like, I like the rugby, but it's sort of away to the Gaelic football because it's and 100%, and I can see it from both sides, and I can see both arguments of it. But the problem is we're now looking at it in terms of, it's a massive thing, and it has a big impact even on young females dropping out of sport. If you've got an inter-county Gaelic footballer who's just going to drop into soccer for a couple of months, and the young player who's maybe is number 12 who would start isn't playing, then all of a sudden because the Gaelic player has come back, you're going to get disinterested. You're going to get sort of pushed off the way you're like, you know what, not for me. I won't bother, and I won't. And then it turns out they don't play sport at all. And like the other side of it is, there's a lot of other things in terms of what the FAI are doing and that need to be worked out, ironed out, even the likes of the club mark stuff and things like that. But I think it's a positive.
I'm glad you mentioned the club mark, because for me that's an absolute no-brainer. Like, the problem we've had in football, mainly in urban areas, in my experience, is there's a park down the road, there's pitches in the park, anyone can set up a team, rent a pitch off the council. Easier said than done, but you get a pitch from the council and you're up and running, you're in a league. one or two people running the whole show. There's no accountability in terms of child protection. If there's underage teams in there, there's no insurance. Could be a maybe if the leagues are vigilant about it. Most of them require you to submit insurance confirmation. It's not required. There's no club constitution. The account doesn't exist. It's someone's running out of a petty cash drawer. And so the club mark eliminates all of that. So if we lose 10 or 15% of our, and I use it in inverted commas, clubs, that might not necessarily be a bad thing. Just to have, if you look at the rugby model here, each town has one rugby club, and everybody who's interested in rugby gets behind that. Whether they like each other or not, they're part of that one club. In soccer, we see so many little individual fights. We see it at all levels. We've seen teams qualifying for European competition in women's sports in the last 20 years, 20 years, win the FAI Cup as it was at the time, and then 6 months later, they're two separate teams. One's going to Europe and one has the players.
Do you know what I mean? Prime example in that situation is there was the successful Dundalk team back in the 90s.
No,
you know,
2000s.
There was a split then and where
2005.
You know, and but like even like it's so important because your community, even when it comes to women's sport, is so important. Like I remember watching my local rugby team, 2007, 2006, 2008, 2009, probably getting 500-600 fans at a low level All Ireland League game. Back when it wasn't that big, when it wasn't necessarily in the area that big, and like women's soccer, there's so much potential, so much untapped potential in terms of women's football right now, and like the more players we have, the more things we have, because there's no doubt we're going to see another explosion in terms of expansion of the women's league. And the problem is where do you get the players come from? So you need these rural towns. If these rural towns can help you produce one player, say each county starts producing 2 players a year from some of the smaller counties, they could be a big difference between, say, a Sligo Rovers making massive strides because they've got 2 players coming out of Leitrim, or you've got 2 players coming out of Mayo that are going to Sligo Rovers if Mayo don't have a team. And they'd be a massive addition. And I think that's where with all these sort of standards, even with the terms of the right coaching, the right sort of things, you have to put these sort of things in place from an early age, and start the kids off on the right foot and have it the right way up for a football club and run from top to bottom right. And it's only going to help football in this country.
Oh, 100%. And you're using Leitrim because of where I'm from and the local connections around here. But that's just the reality. We have a county that has 2 adult, maybe managers of a team. No, they don't. The 2 adult teams, men's and women's. There's 2 junior adult teams in the county. 2 men's teams. There's no women's adult team in the county, and that's not a positive. We don't have an FAI development officer. We haven't had one for about 18 months since the Leitrim officer moved to Roscommon and hasn't been properly replaced. It's a fall over from Sligo, but it's a Sligo person based in Sligo. Raf Kataro, phenomenal, but does not have the time to do Sligo. Never mind the addition of Leitrim in there as well in a meaningful way. Can do it, can provide the courses, can provide the supports, but not necessarily actually get out there and get his hands dirty and kind of grow clubs and develop clubs in a meaningful way. Just the resources aren't there. So yeah. Anyway, we're going off on tangents that really we shouldn't be going off on a League of Ireland Women's podcast, but I think we get it because we're passionate about this sport. We're passionate about improving the standards, and not just at the League of Ireland level, because we see teams like Newbridge, Terranure, Whitehall, Douglas Hall, Bonagee have all come in at this level in recent years, and we need to see them close that gap. Now, what I will say is slowly but slowly, we're seeing the gap within the league close. The bottom 4 teams are so much closer to the top 4 teams in the last year or 2 than we've ever seen before. It's taken 10, 15 years to get to that point. I think it's going to take that EWFL, CWSSL, and all the junior leagues, the Galway League or whatever, Mayo League around the country. It's going to take them a little bit of time to close that gap. But we're going to see girls coming through the underage academies at League of Ireland. Some will drop out of the game. It's inevitable. Some will fall back into their junior sides. So when you look at that Newbridge Town team you talked about, I think more than half of them have played either underage League of Ireland or first team League of Ireland in the last 2 seasons. Probably nearly all of them have come from that rank and dropped back down. And as we see those quality players go back into junior football, the standard's going to get better.
That's where it's important that we have correct pathways for players who maybe don't make it at senior League of Ireland level. And I think that's where it's really important across the country that we have these opportunities. Because the easy option is for a girl to say, you know what, I'll go play a different sport, or I won't play soccer at all. And if you can filter these back into the EWFL, into the local leagues all around the country, it only makes the local league stronger.
Yeah, one name that's sprung out at me in recent weeks was I think it was Wilton and Douglas Hall down in Cork in the CWSSL, won the cup finals, and the players that were playing for both teams, and the ones I can remember, Jessie Mendez was playing.
Mendez, and no disrespect, she should not be at that level.
No, she's much better. But you could throw that accusation at probably 5 or 6 girls across those two teams. And that maybe speaks to the problems that Cork are having, which maybe is a good segue into Cork's game at the weekend.
We're playing the weekend.
We're playing, of course. Let's talk about a different game, though, because I feel like we could be ranting here for another hour if we let it. Let's go DLR and Treaty. Both teams a really good opportunity, a nice draw for both sides, home draw for DLR. They've been on a good vein of form coming into it, or as good as they can in what's been a poor season. Treaty, equally, we were looking at this as a really winnable opportunity. It was the Shannon Siders that came away in the end. 2 goals, Madeline Robbins and Isabella Flacchini, or Flocchini, if Declan Hughes is to be believed. Your thoughts on the game? Treaty well deserved?
I thought in the first half, I thought DLR were well in the game. Treaty had lots of chances, but when DLR lost Jess Gleeson, it was a massive blow for them. And second half, it's just like even the second half for me, Treaty were just the better sides. The first goal, Madeline Robinson, when she picks the ball up out for a throw in, and it's just allowed to glide inside, go, and then nearly pick when she wants to shoot in lots of space. And for me, it was a nice finish, but Bella Flacchini's, she's just ridiculous. Interesting also to see this in the last. I think it was yesterday. The FAI tweet, the official league account was tweeting about her as well, and just asking how good she was. Actually, earlier today, asking how good she was. For me, she's been top drawer. But the thing about it is, right?
17 minutes, Aaron. 17 minutes. I call it. First game of the season. I'd like to point that out. I'd like to remind you, 17 minutes into the first game, I was like, we have a baller, I think, with my exact words.
But the thing about it is, right, and I'm not saying this in a bad way, in the sense of, like, yes, she's been very good for Treaty, but some of the other players have actually stepped up massively around her. And it's not just the case that when we talk about Treaty, we're talking about a one-team show.
Not at all.
Like, we've been talking about Robbins, we've been talking to Katie Lawley, we've been talking about Madison McGuan.
It's funny you say that.
Hayes at the left back.
And it's funny you say that, because I was actually just looking back through the record of the game, and Treaty made 4 subs in the tail end of the game. They're 2-0 up, but there's 20 minutes left away from home in a cup game where it's women's football. Anything can happen. We saw that Rover scored twice in a minute. It's not beyond the realms.
Now, I'm going to stop you. I'm going to stop you. No. I'm going to ask you to stop for a second. I'm going to ask you to look at the substitutions and look who come on.
Gillian Keegan.
You haven't even noticed this.
They're all youngsters.
No. There you got it. Who's come back into the club? Hasn't been there all year?
Gillian Keenan, yeah, absolutely. She's been away. She's at Athlone. And that's a big statement as well, bringing those
massive sign. That's a massive sign.
The 4 players who came off, Aaron, for me, are 4 of the 6 best players that I could say 4. The 4 of the top players that Treaty have had this year. You're looking at Ikeza at left back that you mentioned. She's been, for me, a real standout. Left backs don't tend to get a whole pile of attention. Her distribution has been phenomenal this year. Katie Lawley has been a revelation up front. I think having quality around her has really developed her own game this year. Mm-hmm. Madison don't need any introduction. She's been player of the month this year. She's been up for goal of the month, I think, this year. She's been a revelation all year. She's still on. Is she even 16 yet? I don't even think she's 16 yet. And then Kira Breslin with a phenomenal assist last week to set up the winner for Flacchini. So we're seeing those girls. If you can take those girls off when you're not 100% nailed on for a win in the cup away from home, like the confidence in your squad to be able to do that for Sean Russell is just huge.
Come here. Sneaky. The Gillian Keenan kept under the wraps and sort of literally, I hadn't even noticed it, and I think it's going to be a great addition for them for the remainder of the season. Like that's her what's her second debut with Treaty at the weekend, and she's going to be someone who you're probably going to say is going to be pushing to be starting in that team come the next couple of weeks, and that's the sort of thing where we're now sort of talking. Russell has options. We're talking Russell has options, and Russell has players he can turn to, like. Without being disrespectful to Treaty, to DLR, but when have we ever seen Treaty sort of in recent years being able to do what they were able to do in the last 20 minutes and take the players off? Never.
Yeah. No,
I think it's.
But players of that quality, like I don't think there's any other team in the league that would have taken off 4 key players, whatever about replacing kind of fringe players or the lower names on the list. They're all first name, like they're in the first 5 or 6 names you're putting on that list, along with maybe goalkeeper Madeline Robbins and Flacchini. Like they're probably the 7 key players. Well, Kira Breslin may or not be quite in that.
Come here, just in terms of just to go to the other side for a minute, and our name is gonna annoy me now. I think it's Amber Young Cullen for the other Waves.
Okay,
I was quite impressed with her off the bench for Waves. Been impressed with her a couple of times this season.
It's Amber Cullen, thank you.
Yeah, I've been impressed with her a little bit this season. Listen, it wasn't the result that Waves wanted, but Waves have been on great form recently, and like I think they'll still take an awful lot of positives from getting to the quarter final. I think they can finish the season off strong. For Treaty, it's another big opportunity. It's a massive opportunity to get the semi-final is going to be live on telly. We'll talk about the draw in a few minutes. Semi-final is going to be live on telly. Another game on television. What an opportunity for the Limerick side.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely huge for them. Yeah, Cullen's impressed. She's only played a handful of games this year. She has been on the score sheet though, so she has impressed me in the few bits and pieces she's played in recent weeks. In terms of the finish, Flacchini's strike was amazing. The first goal, Madeline Robbins, great run from the sideline into the center of the pitch. Nobody really closes her down or makes any challenge. Like she has a kind of and it's not a great effort. Even Anna won't be too happy with it either, but like avoidable.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. But listen, the problem is you can't give that sort of space to a player like that. You can't. And like we're going to talk about Bohs in a few minutes against Peamount. It's the same sort of thing. You can't stand over a player of quality. They're just going to strike from distance in this league, and unless it's on about 7 times out of 10, it's going to be a quality strike as well, which is going to leave your keeper no chance.
Let's move on to the other games because we're running out of time here. 2 Peamount games to talk about. First up, the cup game against Athlone at the weekend. Greenogue, the venue, PRL Park. Wasn't to be for the Peas. Athlone Town.
No longer PRL Park, believe it or not. It's gone back to Greenogue Park.
Wasn't aware of that. Obviously, sponsorship deal has ended. In terms of Peamount United, they'll be disappointed to go out of the cup to Athlone, but they can have absolutely no qualms about the actual strike. What a finish. Some goal for Athlone.
Aoife O'Connor. I thought Peamount were decent enough in the game. I think Peamount have had some really, really good performances lately where they probably haven't got some results, but like it was a superb strike. When you was texting me on Saturday, because when I was in Newbridge, and I was like, the first thing I just replied to you is send me the goal. And when I look at him, just like, what a hit. What an absolute strike. I do have some concerns about Athlone. Like, yes, it's their first league win in a month since July the 12th. Hannah Waish missing again, and be very interesting to see if she plays this week, because they're now going into a run where they play Shells at the weekend, then they're straight into European football on Wednesday, and then they've got 2 big games in the next week. So be interested to see if there was a potential that she'd a bit of a niggle and they were just resting her like they'd sort of done with Izzy Groves off the back of the Terran Euro Cup game when they rested her and sort of brought her in for the Champions League. I think it was an important win for Athlone. In terms of domestic form, has been probably atrocious in the sense of results wise recently, picking up dropping the 6 league points with the 3 draws. But for me, it was a big win for Athlone. Peamount, as I say, did perform relatively well in the game, but it was just that moment was really the big difference.
Yeah, no. just sheer quality. For those who haven't seen it, do check it out. It's on the FAI YouTube account. But player cuts down the right wing, cuts it back to the edge of the box, and O'Connor is just on the edge of the box, about 5 yards out on the edge of the D. Just lets loose and it rasps off. Like
you could have five Amanda Buttons in there.
Yeah,
and
just
it's
bottom of the crossbar, bounces down just inside the line and up into the top of the net. It was an absolute screamer. Just quality, but it's what we see week in, week out in this league is just really top-notch goals. Placini's very similar, to be fair, in that win against DLR as well. Let's move forward from the Athlone game. We'll talk about them in the draw in a couple of moments, maybe with their European exploits next week as well. Peamount were in action again, a refixed game against Bohemians in Dalymount last night. Bohs started brightly, right out of the blocks with an opener just before half time, and it kind of looked as if they were going to edge that. They would have gone in as favourites based on league position.
Both started the game okay. I thought Pease come in when, for me, the goal probably comes against the run of play. Like when you watch it back, it's a ball, the ball across the outside of the box from Hannah Healy. Dervla Burns sort of gives the ball away, and then Ava Brennan does well down muscle side Doyle. Amanda Budden probably a little bit disappointed being beaten at her near posts. Pease probably feel they could have had one or two penalties. I thought referee wasn't great in the game. First penalty incident for me is a clear penalty. It's a clear as day push from Lisa Murphy, pushes Peamount player straight into Katie Lovely, and Lovely sort of hits at her as well. And it's then the second one I'm not 100% sure, but the penalty he does give just after half time. Ball bounces up and hits Fiona Donnelly's hand. The pitch is a bit that end of that Dalymount as a multiplier. Like if that's the penalty you're gonna give, like surely you give one or the other. But then when Ellen has the penalty missed, Peamount go up the other.
It's not a great penalty.
It's not a great penalty, but both go up the other end not long after and have a same type of appeal. The one thing I will say is Amanda Budden made some great saves just at the start of the second half, to deny Bohs, and then when Ellen Dolan misses the penalty, I like the fact that she was able to bounce back so quickly with the header. It was a nice header, and then the second goal.
Now, question for is it the second goal? Is it Ellen Dolan? Is that the one I'm thinking of? Is it the header where it appears to hit the post and come back off the keeper and into the net? I think they're both given to Ellen Dolan, but
give it to Dolan. I thought she was brilliant. I thought she was sensational.
She was excellent.
She was sensational last night. I mean, even when I was speaking to her, she was a little bit downbeat over missing the penalty. But like I turned around and said, I said, your character to actually the way it bounced back to me was probably what was more impressive. And then like the second goal, it comes from a mistake, a poor kick out from Rachel Kelly, poor touch from Katie Lovely. Could have been it probably was a foul. He sort of played advantage, and then when the ball goes to Ellen Dolan, like Lisa Murphy can't stand off Ellen Dolan like that and sort of back pedal. And Ellen Dolan just says, that's fine, I'll just hit it. And then boom, buries it. I think you gotta ask some questions of Bohs in the sense of it was definitely tired legs. They played three games in the space of a week. Tight enough squads. Probably would have liked to have a bit more rotation in the squad, but the problem is it's difficult at this level. It ends a run of nine games unbeaten for Bohs. I think Alvin Heisel, when he looks back at it, I was talking to him last night, he sort of said that if his players could have sort of started the way they finished with the energy they had when they finished. It just wasn't to be their night. I think Peamount were valiant winners. I had great fun in the press box last night. Peamount's media man Max Thompson was with myself and Daryl Garrity, and we just wound them up all night throughout the game. And it was just one of them nights that it was a good night to be in Dalymount. 400 odd crowd, I think, for a Tuesday night game was quite decent. And Peamount were full deserving of the win for me. For Bohs, they were a massive game this week when they're on the road to Galway. I wouldn't be surprised to see them make a couple of changes with the All Ireland Cup the week after.
Yeah, absolutely. There was one moment in the game, fairly innocuous, but it just caught my attention as I was watching it last night, and it was Peamount on the attack, ball's broken to a defender who just boots it clear. Ball bounces kindly for Savannah Kane, who takes a touch and she's up against one-on-one against Karen Duggan. And what's Savannah Kane? Is she 18, 19, 20 maybe?
17.
Is she? And for me, the whole situation kind of encapsulated how the league has developed in the last 5 to 6 years in particular. Looking at Karen Duggan, arguably the most influential player on the league, on the pitch for the last decade, if not more. I don't think that's disputable, is it?
She's definitely in the top three anyway.
Yeah. And you're a newbie breaking into the squad in Bohs, and one touch past her and you're gone. And it's that confidence to not panic or to not worry about it. It's just like, I don't care how many international caps she's got or how many league medals she's got. I can take this player on. And initially it looks as if she's left her for dead. And then to see Karen turn on the afterburners at this stage of her career, not the fastest afterburners, but she makes up for maybe that lack of a yard of speed, and she makes that block and the ball goes out for a corner. But I just thought both players at different stages of their careers both showed the quality that's in the league, if that makes sense.
What was that? That was about, what, 90?
No, about 75.
Karen Duggan at that stage.
Savannah Kane just came on, by the way, so she's buzzing with energy. Hasn't had to do the running that Karen's been doing all night. So there's a totally understandable reason why she's left her for dead.
But I think the tenacity from Duggan, and the funny thing is, like, when you said it to me, when you started alluding to this pre-show and you're pulling, as soon as you clicked the ball up, I turned around and said, well, Duggan and Kane, and it's like it really is a telling of to what the league has come to compared to, because we used to see the odd sparkle of, how would you say, of a youngster coming through, the odd one here or there. Now we're seeing dozens of them. And I think it's great to see when they go up against these old guard. And I think that's something that I'm going to have to give Alan Murphy and Alban Heise serious credit for this season. Because that Bohs side have no fear. Yeah, they have no fear. They don't care who they're playing against.
I think, and we're harsh at times on the FAI. We're very harsh, and most times warranted. But I think
we're also nice to them at times.
Well, that's what I'm about to say, is that I think we're seeing these youngsters who have come through the underage academy, and I don't just mean played under 17 for a season or two and now they're in the league, like some of the players who are in the league still from that inaugural season, but they aged out of the underage academies really quickly. I'm talking about these girls who were 10 when those academies started, and came in at 15, and they've been 2 or 3 years, 4 seasons in that setup, 17s and 19s, and we're seeing a much higher quality of player. Yes, the coaches
I also had people asking to say that they need 23s as well because of these other players that don't get there. But I'll say this to you now, and giving the FAI the credit, no 17s and 19s league. We don't see half the talent that we're seeing right now. The coaches, the workers that got gone in with clubs around the country, even the coaches, the support staff, the help, the development of these players. I think the underage leagues for women have been one of the biggest success stories of women's football in the last number of years.
Oh, I can't doubt that at all. It's been a phenomenal journey for everybody involved in that. Let's talk about the cup draw before we go to the league table and the fixtures for the weekend. The cup draw. I also have one other thing I want to bring up, because I know I've seen you on social media the other day. Like, even before we do the cup draw, I want to talk about what happened in Scotland. Yeah, it was absolutely
great to see so many people got behind Young Sky, and the score at the weekend as well for Kilmarnock. For me, like, that's a youngster who we talk so much about young kids coming into our league and how we want to see them succeed, how we want to see them play well, do what they do. That's a youngster signing for Kilmarnock who had a dream of going.
For context, anyone who's watching this show probably has seen this during the week, to be fair. But Kilmarnock signed a player from Celtic. I think 18-year-old Scottish girl, Sky Stout. She's young. She's mid-teens. She's signed for Kilmarnock. They put up, as clubs do for every player that signs, a photo of her in the jersey, happy out. She has an acne problem, right? As a huge proportion of teenagers do. She has a very, very bad medical issue, obviously, with acne. And the abuse that photograph got, so much so that they had to remove it from their socials, and they had to remove it from they had a video up as well. Everything got removed with her face in it, which has to be so disheartening. It's been shared again by so many people. I know John Hartson shared it, wasn't particularly happy with how he did that. But people in the game have been very supportive of her when she got.
We've even seen people from Ireland in terms of I've seen Eileen Gleeson reaching out. I've seen Denise O'Sullivan reaching out, just to name two from Ireland have done it. But like the biggest thing is to me is her attitude.
Yeah.
I'm just going to let my football do the talking. And to me, that was the biggest telltale of somebody.
She scored at the weekend for Kilmarnock on her debut, which I'll be honest,
I was delighted.
Social media is such a cesspit at times, particularly Twitter, and I have never been as happy in my life. So much so that I rarely post on my personal profiles on social media anymore. And I actually said, you know what? This is a moment of celebration. This girl has had a week from hell, and she deserves every little bit of. And like, it doesn't matter to her whether I support her or not, but it's just the general vibe. So good to see the outpouring of support that came for a youngster who's making her first steps in the game, has a potentially very exciting career ahead of her. I don't know anything about her as a player, but she can't be that bad if she's knocking on the door of the Women's League in Scotland. So fair play to you, Sky Stout. I think we're and as someone said on social over the week, there has to be some sort of beer company on the Isle of Skye or somewhere that's going to sponsor this girl. She has to come out of this financially better off, as well as hopefully supported, feeling the love from half the women's football world over the weekend. Ignore the haters. There are always going to be a couple of them floating around. Let's jump into the cup draw. It's kind of the cup draw we kind of wanted. We're going to see Bohs or Treaty in the final. I personally am kind of delighted about that.
Oh, I'm buzzing. I'm delighted to see the two of them. As I'm going to call it now, and I'm going to rename it the Alban Heisa Derby. Having done unbelievable work with both teams, and I'm really excited. The biggest question on my lips is not around, the two games we played the same day. Biggest question on my lips is there's talk that one of them could be at 4 and the other one at 7:30. Which one of TG Carr and the FAI are going to put a 7:30? Because I know which one I'd be putting a 7:30, and that'd be Bohs and Treaty, because I think that's the one that'll get the crowd. I think Bohs and Treaty get a bigger crowd.
I can see them putting the other one, to be honest, given the Shamrock Rovers is the name, So
the problem for me is they're both bloody going to be in Dublin, and how do I was sort of hoping for either a 2:00 and then 7:00 kickoff, or one on Saturday, one on Sunday, and get to both of them. And now I'm trying to decide based off of what's what to see what's
one to the other. You can get from one to the other in an hour.
40 minutes, about 40. It depends when I get out. Yeah, I probably could.
You might miss the first 10, 15 minutes of one game, but you'll be all right.
Certain clubs might let you. Certain clubs might let you interview late.
Are we talking one certain club might let you in for late? Moving swiftly on before we get ourselves in a world of trouble. The other semi-final, of course, Shamrock Rovers and Athlone Town, probably the fancy, more fancy teams of the four left, with the whole bump that Stephanie Zambra has brought to Tala in recent weeks. It's an interesting challenge. Athlone Town will go into this as big favourites. In fact, they're probably the favourites to win the cup outright, given that all the other top four sides are all out of the cup. But it's going to be an interesting few weeks, see how that pans out, because I think at home, new manager bounce, although it's probably a fairly lengthy bounce at this stage. It's going to be interesting to see. I think Shamrock Rovers, I would love for the and I apologize to Athlone in advance for this, but I would love to see Shamrock Rovers and one of the other two in the final, obviously. I just think it would
I said I'd love to see a Rovers. I've said I'd love to see a Rovers Bohs final. But for me, I'll go as far as saying if it was a Rovers Treaty final, I'd be happy. As much as I'd be happy with it, I'll be honest with you, I don't care who's in the final now, because the only I don't want, and this is something like we've seen it in the men's when we got Cork City and Dundalk for several years in a row, like we got Wexford and Shells for several years in a row in the women's at that stage. Same amount of finalists every year becomes, not necessarily redundant, it becomes stale. Yeah. So I'd like to see new names in the trophy. I'd like to see, a new winner, and hopefully we get that this year. But I think from an Athlone viewpoint, if they get through, if they win one of the two games in Europe, obviously they'll have more games in Europe, which will be more midweek games potentially needed for them. And the season could become very compact where they're having to pick and choose games and sort of what's what. So I think it's be interesting times for them. I think the fact the cup game is 4 weeks last Saturday, so there's a lot of time, a lot of moving parts could change. I think from Zambra's viewpoints, if you could beat Shells and Athlone in the same year in the cup, I think you'd have to be nearly a shoe in for that job.
Absolutely. Let's take a quick look at the league table before the weekend's action. As we said, one game played in the league this week was last night, where Peamount closed the gap a little bit on Bohemians with that 2-win from behind. Great result for the Peas in Dalymount last night. The fixtures this weekend: DLR Waves play Waterford, Sligo Rovers host Shamrock Rovers, while Peamount make the journey down to Cork. Galway United will face Bohemians in Imedisi Park, while Treaty across the country to Wexford, where they'll play FAI Park on Saturday evening, and Athlone Town versus Shells. That game is in Athlone Town Stadium. Massive game, live on TG Cahir as well. You can see at the top of the table, only 2 points separate the sides. They play each other twice before the end of the season. A Shells win puts them absolutely in the driving seat for the league. A draw leaves it to that last game and maybe a slip up here or there for both sides. But a win for Athlone really puts the cat among the pigeons in terms of reducing this to a single point.
Can we have a draw?
A draw works fine. Yeah, a draw is fine for
a draw, because a draw then sort of brings.
Well, a draw and a win for Athlone is the same kind of result. It reduces.
Well, a draw sort of brings Wexford nearly back into that sort of where they can cause a bit of trouble in the sense of, granted, there'll be a draw if they finish Shells go to 37, Wexford win, Wexford go to 34. They still have to play Shells again, but Shells still have to play Athlone, and it makes a little bit of a dicey affair. But games are going to come. But then Wexford taking fast on it.
Wexford at home to Treaty is not a foregone conclusion either. You'd expect Wexford to come through it, but it's going to be interesting to see how Treaty plan out now the next month. Do they put a focus on getting to the cup final, or do they still continue to try and win every single game? I think they'll want league title as much as the cup will be nice. I think it's the league position that's going to matter for them the most at the end of the season.
Like they've got Wexford, Galway, and Sligo before they play that cup semi-final. So they've got 3 big league games. I think you have to focus on the league games for a minute, and then as you get closer to the cup, then you can sort of pick and choose in the last week or two. But the other side of it, then, it's not like Bohs, where Bohs have a cup final coming up in the middle, where Bohs probably have to be a little bit more strategic. Like for Treaty, if Treaty can beat Wexford and then beat Galway, like you're sort of talking then Treaty be up to 4th place.
Yeah, it's interesting times ahead. Like they can, it's going to be fun to watch the next couple of weeks. I think I'm excited.
Do me a favor. Call the 2 big games this weekend.
I think Athlone Shells is a 1-1 draw. Maybe score draw. The other big game. Well, which game are you calling the big game? Wexford Treaty?
Well, you've 2 massive
big games.
They're all big games. Call the 5 of them, 6 of them.
Okay, so you put me on the spot now. Thanks a million for that. DLR Waterford. I think DLR might just edge this. They've been kind of getting their act together in the last couple of weeks in terms of results. The wheels have kind of come off for Waterford a little bit. So I think potentially a 1-2-0 win for DLR in that game. Sligo Rovers, Shamrock Rovers. I'd love to say Sligo, but I just think Shamrock Rovers on a bit of a bounce. They'll be buzzing from last week's results. And I'd expect them to come through relatively comfortably, although you never quite are comfortable in the showgrounds. 2-0 maybe Shamrock Rovers on that front. Although Sligo always seem to score. They always seem to find a goal from somewhere. So maybe 2-1 or 3-1. Cork City, Peamount all day for me in that one. I think Cork just seem to be in free fall. Everything's gone from bad to worse for them in the last couple of weeks. Players leaving, a lot of negative things coming out, so that's not great from their point of view. So I'll give Peamount with a good win. They had a great morale boosting win last night in Dalymount. I think that's going to tide them over.
We never actually mentioned this. That win in Dalymount was actually Peamount's first league win since May the 17th.
Second win. They'd 1 win in the previous 10 games, and in fact, if you look at the form table going into last night's game, if you're ranking them out, Peamount would have been 10th in the league with just a solitary point. I think only DLR or Cork and Waterford would have been below them, and that says something. The next closest team 6 points. DLR and Sligo both on 6 points out of the previous 15. So it shows in form-wise how bad Peamount have been in the league in the last...
But remember that Waterford win was also their first away win in a year as well at that stage.
Yeah. So, but you know what? They turned the corner last night, I think, in that performance. I was really impressed with them, and be interesting to see how that pans out over the next couple of weeks. Jumping back into the thing, Galway Bohs. This will be tight. Galway maybe just by a goal. Wexford Treaty... my heart says Treaty.
Oh, I'm calling away win. You know you're going to call.
No, my heart says Treaty. But I think Wexford probably edge this. A draw or a Wexford goal by a Wexford win by a goal. But you know what? I don't think it. And funny enough, I think either Athlone are going to edge a tight game or they're going to walk it. I can't see Shells. I have a feeling we could see Shells capitulate on. And I'm going to get myself in a world of hurt now. But I think Shells.
If Alex Cavan is suspended, that would be the game changer for me.
Shells without Alex Kavanagh is a different kettle of fish, and you can have your Pearls and your Rachels and your Noels. Yes, they're all class acts, but I think the bit of sheer quality that Alex Kavanagh brings to the table, if she's not there, Shells could be in bother on Saturday evening. But do you know what? That's the beauty of it. And Athlone win puts a point between them with 7 games to go. A draw leaves 2 between them. The one thing from a neutral's point of view is we don't want to see a Shells win. Shells
Athlone win, that put them top of the table.
It does by a point. It flips it, but there's a point between them. So yeah,
it'll also end that run of 3 draws in a row for Athlone.
So, but again, I wouldn't put past a draw on that one. Anything could happen. Anything could happen in any of these games. But if I had to put my neck on the block, I think Athlone by a goal. That's me. I've now put myself on the dressing room door.
It's nice that you're answering the questions instead of me for 10.
It's not you this time. Yeah, it's not you this time. You said you wanted to bring something else up before we wrapped up.
No, it was more going to bring up the Sky Stout stuff, but Scouts. But it was just at that stage. I said I'd bring it up at that.
Was that what you'd warned me pre-show that you were going to bring something up?
No, that was the Scarlet Heron thing I was going to say about the Rovers and the connection of interview, and I just thought that was brilliant.
Perfect. Well, listen, as always, Aaron, thanks for your company. We're way over time again this week. We will strive to bring it back to the hour. If you're watching or listening still, thank you so much for supporting the show, watching the show. Don't forget you can subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. We're on YouTube as well. You can catch us on our website, but subscribe on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or YouTube or wherever you follow this. We'd love to have you every week on the show. The numbers have been really good recently, so we really do appreciate all the support, and maybe we'll catch you at a game soon. Aaron, chat to you again next week.